Okay, following the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya. Now Tam Das Thakur says, Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtan. That Lord Chaitanya has brought this process of glorifying the Lord with chanting his holy names, reading and chanting about him, glorifying his pastimes, names, forms, pastimes, activities. That's what they do in Goloka Vrindavan, in the spiritual sky. And he's brought that process here to us. So that's part, and Srimad Bhagavatam is an integral part of that process of glorifying the Lord, as we'll read today in some of these verses and explanations of how this chanting process and glorifying the Lord in his pastimes nourishes our prema, our love for Krishna. So we'll begin. I'll share the screen. Okay, we're on April 2021, lessons 1 and 2, which include the end of chapter 6. You may remember there are a few verses we were reading Purusha Shukta, and we were reading about how Lord Brahma explained to his son Narada how Mahavishnu glanced over the material nature and the elements, the core elements of the entire material cosmos were manifested: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, time. And then different universes were manifested. Then the Lord entered into each one of those universes as Garbhodakshai, Vishnu. That part of creation is called Sarga. Then Lord Brahma takes over, and he starts to, he produces and creates the planetary systems and the 8,400,000 bodies, types of bodies that the living entities enter into. That's called Visarga. So there's Zarga, Visarga. And then he transforms and evolves to describing the Lord's incarnations within each universe. And that's where we are now, with a slight review of Mahavishnu. And that's where we'll start now with Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, chapter 6, which was Purusha Shukta confirmed, text 42. Karnanavasai Vishnu is the first incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and he is the master of eternal time, space, cause and effects, mind, the elements, the material ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form of the Lord, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and the sum total of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This material manifestation is necessary to give a chance to the conditioned souls who are unwilling to associate with the Lord in the relationship of loving transcendental service. Such unwilling, conditioned souls are not allowed to enter into the liberated life of spiritual existence, because at heart, they are not willing to serve. Instead, they want to enjoy themselves as imitation gods. The living entities are constitutionally eternal servitors of the Lord, but some of them, because of misusing their independence, do not wish to serve. Therefore, they are allowed to enjoy the material nature, which is called Maya, or illusion. It is called illusion because the living beings under the clutches of Maya are not factually enjoyers, although they think that they are, being illusioned by Maya. Such illusioned living beings are given a chance at intervals to rectify their perverted mentality. Of becoming, such illusioned living entities are given a chance at intervals to rectify their perverted mentality of becoming false masters of the material nature, and they are imparted lessons from the Vedas about their eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Vedascha sarvar aham eva vedya.
Okay, next, can Vaishnavi, would you read, please? Next.
Or okay. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.6, 43 through 45. I myself, Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, great generators of living beings like Daksha and Prajapati, yourselves, Narada and the Kumaras, heavenly demigods like Indra and Chandra, the leaders of the Bhurloka planets, the leaders of the earthly planets, the leaders of the lower planets, the leaders of the Gandharva planets, the leaders of the Vidyadhara planets, the leaders of Charana Loka planets, the leaders of Yakshas, Rakshas, and Uragas, the great sages, the great demons, the great atheists, and the great spacemen, as well as the dead bodies, evil spirits, Satans, Jinn, Kushmandas, great aquatics, great beasts, and great birds, etc. In other words, anything and everything which is exceptionally possessed of power, opulence, mental and perceptual dexterity, strength, forgiveness, beauty, modesty, opulence, and breeding, and whether in form or formless, may appear to be the specific truth and the form of the Lord. But actually, they are not so. They are only a fragment of the transcendental potency of the Lord. Continue. Should I continue?
Yes, continue.
Okay. Purport. So, different persons, societies, and communities, etc. 1 minute. So, different persons, societies, and communities, etc., worship some of the potent manifestations of the Lord, wrongly accepting the powerful object of as God. But in this verse, it is advised by Brahmaji that none of them is the Supreme Lord. They are only borrowed plumes from the original Almighty Lord Sri Krishna. When the Lord advises in Bhagavad Gita to worship Him alone, it is to be understood that worshipping Lord Krishna includes worshipping all that is mentioned, because He, Lord Krishna, includes everyone. When the Lord is described as formless in the Vedic literatures, it is to be understood that all these forms mentioned above, within the experience of universal knowledge, are different exhibitions of the Lord's transcendental potencies only, and none of them factually represent the transcendental form of the Lord. But when the Lord actually descends to the earth or anywhere within the universe, the less intelligent class of men also mistake him to be one of them. And thus they imagine the transcendence to be formless or impersonal. Factually, the Lord is not formless, nor does he belong to any of the multi forms experienced within the universal forms. One should try to know the truth about Lord by following the instruction of Brahmaji.
Very good. Thank you. Manvantar, would you read next? But before you do, the example that we spoke about last week about watering the root of the tree that Tisha brought up, and it was referred to in this first part of the purport.
Also, we can note that Brahma is setting up the next verse. He's saying, he just pointed out all these different all these different lists of people that have, of things and people that have extraordinary powers, potencies, unique, and someone may think this is the Lord. But now he'll point out, so he's pointing out that they're not the Lord. He said they may appear like the form of the Lord, but factually they are not so. They're only fragment of the transcendental potency of the Lord. Now in the next verse, who's reading some?
Manvantara, and then after.
I myself, I'm sorry. Oh, Narda, now I shall state one after another the transcendental incarnations of the Lord, known as Leela avatars, Hearing their activities counteract all foul matters accumulated in the ear. These pastimes are pleasing to hear and are to be relished. Therefore, they are in my heart. As it was said in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 8, one cannot be fully satisfied by hearing unless and until one is given a chance to hear of the transcendental activities of the Lord. The cause of such dissatisfaction is the incompatibility of the message with the innermost stratum of the living soul. This is transcendental literature. This transcendental literature is especially prepared by Srila Vyas to give the utmost satisfaction to the people in general by narration of the activities of the Lord, as instructed by Sri Narada Muni to Srila Vyasadeva. Less intelligent persons take more interest in the creative forces of the Lord in the material world, and being disconnected from their relationship with the Lord, they put forward many theories of the creation in the name of scientific research. The devotees of the Lord, however, know well how the creative forces work concurrently by the action and reaction of the material energy of the Lord. Therefore, they take more interest in the transcendental activities of the Lord as he incarnates himself on the surface of the material world. Srimad Bhagavatam is the history of such activities of the Lord, and people who take interest in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam clear their hearts of accumulated mundane filth.
Pati, you wanted to
I'm
say
gonna
something?
after this next verse.
Okay, why don't
I
we
can
have?
do it now.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Actually, here we see that as it was stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam 158, one cannot be fully satisfied by hearing unless and until one is given a chance to hear about the transcendental activities of the Lord. So I put this verse in 158, where it's Narada Muni instructing Vyasadeva, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is worthless. So this refers to when Narada Muni had come to Srila Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva was feeling unfulfilled. But just consider what Vyasadeva had actually done prior to that and why he was still feeling unsatisfied or unfulfilled. He had written the 4 Vedas, Rik, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. He had written 108 Upanishads, 17 Puranas, many Itihasas, which are histories, the Mahabharata, and the Vedanta Sutra. Practically all the Vedas had been written, and still he was feeling that there was a gnawing in him, and he was asking Narada. We read about this in chapter 5 and 6 of Canto 1. He was asking Narada, my spiritual master, why am I feeling this way? So please mute, Faye. So Narada is explaining to him here that although you've written all these different books, although you've compiled all these Vedas, all this information, you still haven't directly broadcast the glories of the Lord. Now, he had written, consider the 18 Puranas, and we'll read about these different incarnations. Several of them are dedicated to the avatars of the Lord. There's a Matsya Purana, a Korma Purana, a Vamana Purana, and a Shringa Purana. There are several books, Vedas, directly expanding on those forms of the Lord as the theme of the book. Purana means universal history. So depending on the point of vision that one looks at something, they see it from that vision. Like a diamond has different facets, and no matter where you are around it, you'll see different lights coming from it. But people may be looking at the same thing and seeing it slightly different. So similarly, Vyasadeva had written all these things, but he hadn't broadcast the exact glories of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna's Tu Bhagavan Swayam. We also see that in chapter 3 of Canto 1, Sutta Goswami listed all these different incarnations. So the question arises, why is it so repetitive? Why is he doing the same thing again just in the next canto? Why list all these different incarnations? And the reason is to emphasize that they all come from Krishna. They're all Krishna's incarnations. Many people who study Hinduism think there are many gods, but a turtle god, a fish god, a half man, half lion god. But actually, we're learning by the parampara the essence of who this person is. Now I'll go back to the slides, and there's one verse from the 12th canto at the end of Srimad Bhagavatam, which shows nicely how Srila Vyasadeva followed the instructions of his spiritual master. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 12:12:66. This is Sutta Goswami explaining how Sukadev Goswami had spoken. Lord Hari, the supreme controller of all beings, annihilators of the accumulated sins of the age of Kali, Lord Hari, the supreme controller of all beings, annihilates the accumulated sins of the Kali age. Yet other literatures do not constantly glorify him. But that Supreme Personality of Godhead, appearing in his innumerable personal expansions, is abundantly and constantly described throughout the various narrations of this Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the unique feature of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the Bhagavat Purana. Bhagavat Purana. It's not the Nishringa Purana. It's not the Vamana Purana. It's not the Skanda Purana. It's Bhagavat Purana, that book which glorifies Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And now we'll go to chapter 7, scheduled incarnations with specific functions.
Okay, so Mr. Higgins, would you like to read? And then next after him, Tisha.
Okay, thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.7.1. Lord Brahma said, when the unlimitedly powerful Lord assumed the form of a boar as a pastime just to lift the planet Earth, which was drowned in the great ocean of the universe called the Garbhodaka, the first demon, Hiranyaksha, appeared, and the Lord pierced him with his tusk. Purport. Since the beginning of creation, the demons and the demigods, or the Vaishnavas, are always the two classes of living beings to dominate the planets of the universes. Lord Brahma is the first demigod, and Hiranyaksha is the first demon in this universe. Only under certain conditions do the planets float as weightless balls in the air, and as soon as these conditions are disturbed, the planets fall down in the Garbhodaka ocean, which covers half the universe. The other half is the spherical dome within which the innumerable planetary systems exist. The floating of the planets in the weightless air is due to the inner constitution of the globes, and the modernized drilling of the earth is to exploit, excuse me a second, I'm just moving my iPad so I can see better. The modernized drilling of the earth to exploit oil from within is a sort of disturbance by the modern demons and can result in a greatly harmful reaction to the floating condition of the earth. A similar disturbance was created formerly by the demons headed by Hiranyaksha, the great explorer of the gold rush, and the earth was detached from its weightless condition and fell down into the Gabodaka ocean. The Lord, as maintainer of the whole creation of the material world, therefore assumed the gigantic form of a boa with a proportionate snout and picked up the earth from within the water of Gabodaka.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
This is a very significant purport that we are sitting here reading Bhagavatam that was spoken 5,000 years ago, and the knowledge in it is eternal. And we see how this is happening today, that modern man is actually causing havoc to his home, to the earth. And it's very confidential. We are a group of little devotees sitting together speaking about this very confidential and very important subject matter. I hope everybody can appreciate what Prabhupada is saying in these purports. And we are very fortunate to have firsthand knowledge of it. So the world is in a dangerous condition, and we owe it to ourselves and everyone else to become completely Krishna conscious and have full faith in these teachings of Srila Prabhupada. So next we'll have Tisha, and then Ian. Would you read after her, please?
Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam 272. The Prajapati first begot Suyanja in the womb of his wife Akuti, and then Suyanja begot demigods, headed by Suyama in the womb of his wife Dakshina. Suyana, as the Indradeva, diminished very great miseries in the three planetary systems, the upper, lower, and intermediate. And because he so diminished the miseries of the universe, he was later called Hari by the great father of mankind, namely Swayambhuva Manu. Purport. In order to guard against the invention of unauthorized incarnations of God by the fanciful, less intelligent persons, the name of the father of the bona fide incarnation is also mentioned in the authorized revealed scriptures. No one, therefore, can be accepted as an incarnation of the Lord if his father's name, as well as the name of the village or place in which he appears, is not mentioned by the authorized scriptures. In the Bhagavata Purana, the name of the Kalki incarnation, which is to take place in almost 400,000 years, is mentioned along with the name of his father and the name of the village in which he will appear. A sane man, therefore, does not accept any cheap edition of an incarnation without reference to the authorized scriptures.
Thank you. Another very wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada. It's just remarkable that we are, who are we in the universe to be hearing this very important transcendental knowledge? Okay, so Pritam, would you please read? And after, Ian, you were next, and then Pritam.
Okay. Canto 2, that's 7.3. The Lord then appeared as the Kapila incarnation, the son of the Prajapati, Brahmana, Kadama, and his wife Devahuti, along with 9 other women sisters. He spoke to his mother about self-realization, by which in that very lifetime she became fully cleansed of the mud of the material modes and thereby achieved liberation, the path of Kapila. Purport. The instructions of Lord Kapila to his mother Devahuti are fully described in the 3rd canto, chapters 25 to 32 of Srimad Bhagavatam, and anyone who follows the instructions can achieve the same liberation obtained by Devahuti. Lord spoke Bhagavad Gita, and thereby Arjuna achieved self-realization, and even today, anyone who follows the path of Arjuna can also attain the same benefit as Sri Arjuna. The scriptures are meant for this purpose. Foolish, unintelligent persons make their own interpretations by imagination and thus mislead the followers, cause them to remain in the dungeon of material existence. However, simply by following the instructions imparted by Lord Krishna or Lord Kapila, one can obtain the highest benefit even today. With the proportionate improvement of such transcendental devotional service, devotees makes definite progress toward Brahmagatim or Atma Gatim, and ultimately attains Kailasya Gatim, or the abode of the Lord without difficulty. The antiseptic potency of devotional service to the Lord is so great that it can neutralize the material infection even in the present life of a devotee. The devotee does not need to wait for his next birth for complete liberation.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a question to everyone. Why is it that the same benefit is achieved by anyone who hears this knowledge, even so long ago when it was revealed by Krishna and by Kapila Dev? Why is that? Can anyone say? Come on, I know someone knows the answer. Okay, there's Bajra. Before Bajra gets into it, does any Pritam, did you say something? Did you want to say something? Bajra, you're next.
Yeah, I wanted to say that because the because the knowledge is absolute, it works at any point of time.
Good. That's perfect. You want to continue? You can continue if you like.
No, I think that's all,
Pritam.
because the Supreme Lord is absolute. The knowledge given by him is also absolute. So whoever follows them are following the absolute knowledge. So it works at any point of time.
Yeah, it's eternal knowledge. It's
It is
eternal
yes.
knowledge. Good.
Yes.
Badraji, can you please speak now? Can you shine some more light on that?
No, it's coming in the disciplic succession. Passing down like a mango is passing down from the tree from one person to another person. So it is unbroken disciplic, chain of disciplic succession.
Yes. So this knowledge is coming from disciplic succession. It is absolute and it is eternal. So no one can say, well, that happened so long ago. It's not modern. It's not what we do today. Transcendental, eternal knowledge is what we do all the time. And that's why we can relate to it in any age, at any time. So I thought that was an important point. Pritam, can you continue reading? And then Bhadra.
Text 4. The great sage Atri prayed for offspring, and the Lord, being satisfied with him, promised to incarnate as Atri's son, Dattatreya, Datta, the son of Atri. And by the grace of the lotus feet of the Lord, many Yadus, Hayayas, etc., became so purified that they obtained both material and spiritual blessings. Purport. Transcendental relations between the personality of Godhead and the living entities are eternally established in 5 different affectionate humors, which are known as Santa, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. The sage Atri was related with the Lord in the affectionate Vatsalya humor, and therefore, as a result of his devotional perfection, he was inclined to have the personality of Godhead as his son. The Lord accepted his prayer, and he gave himself as the son of Atri. Such a relation of sonhood between the Lord and his pure devotees can be cited in many instances. And because the Lord is unlimited, he has an unlimited number of father devotees. So actually, the Lord is the father of all living entities, but out of transcendental affection and love between the Lord and his devotees, the Lord takes more pleasure in becoming the son of a devotee than in becoming one's father. Parents and other relatives of the Lord achieve all mystic opulences automatically because of their intimate relationship with the Lord. Such opulences include all details of material enjoyment, salvation, and mystic powers. Therefore, the devotee of the Lord does not seek them separately, wasting his valuable time in life. The valuable time of one's life must therefore be fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Then other desirable achievements are automatically gained. But even after obtaining such achievements, one should be on guard against the pitfall of offenses at the feet of the devotees. The vivid example is Haya, who achieved all such perfection in devotional service, but because of his offense at the feet of a devotee, was killed by Lord Parshuram. The Lord became the son of the great sage Atri and became known as Dattatreya.
Samapriya, didn't you read something about Haya?
Yeah, Haya is oh God, Arjun. Who knows? Kartavira Arjun, who came and saw that Jamadagni had a wonderful cow, a Saravi cow, and he wanted that cow, but Jamadagni said, "No, you can't have my cow. This cow is good for my sacrificing. I get so much milk." And whenever anybody came to the ashram, he was able to feed hundreds of men. Actually, he fed all of the army of Kartavira Arjun. So ultimately, he killed Jamadagni, and therefore he had to suffer because he killed this great king killed Jamadagni because he wanted the cow for his own devotional service, but he was ultimately had to be killed by Parashuram, the incarnation of Krishna. So this is so intricate, all of these different stories, and then we're just beginning to talk about the incarnations of Krishna. So who is to speak next? Did I mention? Madhurya Leela, would you speak? And then Karna.
So are you saying that he came as Haya? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh.
She said that Parasuram killed Haya. He was the son of Jamadagni, who Haya had killed.
He was the son of Jamadagni.
Parasuram was.
Haya?
No,
yeah, right. But what about Haya?
He was the king. Haya were the people, the group of people, just like Americans or Indians. The Hayans was the country of the Hayans. So the king is also known as Haya. I did research.
Krita Arjuna. Krita, what's his name?
Yeah,
that was Krita Arjuna. Oh, right. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was. I got confused about that too. So
I saw Badru raise his hand. Oh,
I'm just gonna listen today. So.
Oh, you don't want to read?
I can't.
No? Oh, okay, sweetie. So. Okay, Badru, you can say something, and then after that, Karna, please read. Yes, Badruji.
No, I don't have anything to say. I thought you wanted me to read, but anyhow, go ahead.
Oh, wait a minute. You were sorry. See, I get confused. I'm so sorry.
That's
Badru,
okay, no problem.
You read, and then Madhurya Leela is not reading, then Karna. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
To create different...
I can't read. I'm listening though.
To create different planetary systems, I had to undergo austerities and penance, and the Lord, thus being pleased with me, incarnated in 4 Sanas: Sanak, Sanat Kumar, Sanandan, and Sanatana. In the previous creation, the spiritual truth was devastated, but the 4 Sanas explained it so nicely that the truth at once became clearly perceived by the sages. Purport: the Vishnu Sahasranam prayers mention the Lord's name as Sanata and Sanatan Tama. The Lord and the living entities are both qualitatively Sanatan, eternal, but the Lord is Sanatan Tama, or the eternal in the superlative degree. The living entities are positively Sanatana, but not superlative, because the living entities are apt to fall in the atmosphere of non-eternity. Therefore, the living entities are quantitatively different from the superlative Sanatana, the Lord.
Continue.
Oh, okay. The word son is also used in the sense of charity. Therefore, when everything is given up in charity unto the Lord reciprocates by giving himself unto the devotee. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4:11. Yathamam prapadyante. Brahmaji wanted to create the whole cosmic situation as it was in the previous millennium. And because in the last devastation, knowledge of the absolute truth was altogether erased from the universe, he desired that the same knowledge again be renovated. Otherwise, there would be no meaning in the creation. Because transcendental knowledge is a prime necessity, the ever-conditioned souls are given a chance for liberation in every millennium of creation. The mission of Brahmaji was fulfilled by the grace of the Lord when the four Sanas, namely Sanaka, Sanat Kumar, Sanandan, and Sanatan, appeared as his four sons. These four saints were incarnations of the knowledge of Supreme Lord, and as such, they explained transcendental knowledge so explicitly that all the sages could at once assimilate this knowledge without the least difficulty. By following the footsteps of the four Kumars, one can at once see the Supreme Person of God within oneself.
Okay, so we just read in the beginning of that purport, sana, the definition of sana also is charity. So that charity that's spoken of is this transcendental knowledge that the four Kumars were given and do give. So
it's also important point here is that in the last devastation, knowledge of the absolute truth was erased from the universe. And Brahma decided that the same knowledge again be renovated. Otherwise, there would be no meaning to the creation. We read in the first verse way back today that the purpose of the creation, why is this whole thing created? It's created to give the conditioned souls a chance to go back to Godhead. That's the purpose of this creation, because they misuse their independence. They're an illusion. So the most important essential aspect of this universe is transcendental knowledge, which assists, enlightens, and empowers the living entities so that they can act in devotion to the Lord and go back to Godhead. That's the purpose. I found that fascinating.
So now we're fulfilling the purpose. That's wonderful. Gopa Pandit, could you read? And after Gopa, Narayan.
Unmute.
Yes.
Okay, there you are.
Thanks.
Yeah. I'm reading right off the screen, so
Yeah.
touch. Okay.
Oh.
Srimad Bhagavatam 276. To exhibit his personal way of austerity and penance, he appeared in twin forms as Narayana and Nara in the womb of Murti, the wife of Dharma and the daughter of Daksha. Celestial beauties, the companions of Cupid, went to try to break his vows, but they were unsuccessful, for they saw that many beauties like them were emanating from him, the personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Lord, being the source of everything that be, is the origin of all austerities and penances also. Great vows of austerity are undertaken by sages to achieve success in self-realization. Human life is meant for such tapasya, with the great vows of celibacy or brahmacharya. In the rigid life of tapasya, there is no place for the association of women. And because human life is meant for tapasya, for self-realization, factual human civilization, as conceived by the system of Sanatan Dharma, or the school of four castes and four orders of life, prescribes rigid disassociation from women in 3 stages of life. In the order of gradual cultural development, one's life may be divided into 4 divisions: celibacy, household life, retirement, and renunciation.
Please continue.
During the first stage of life, up to 25 years of age, a man may be trained as brahmachari under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, just to understand that women is the real binding force in the material existence. If one wants to get freedom from the material bondage of conditioned life, he must get free from the attraction for the form of woman. Woman, or the fair sex, is the enchanting principle for the living entities, and the male form, especially in the human being, is meant for self-realization. Studying the whole scheme of disassociation from women, it appears that a woman is a stumbling block for self-realization, and the Lord appeared as Narayana to teach the principle of womanly disassociation with a vow in life. The demigods, being envious of the austere life of the rigid brahmacharis, would try to cause them to break their vows by dispatching soldiers of Cupid. But in the case of the Lord, it became an unsuccessful attempt when the celestial beauties saw that the Lord can produce innumerable such beauties by his mystic internal potency, and that there was consequently no need to be attracted by others externally. There is a common proverb that a confectioner is never attracted by sweetmeats. The confectioner, who is always manufacturing sweetmeats, has very little desire to eat them. Similarly, the Lord, by his pleasure potency, can produce innumerable spiritual beauties and not be the least attracted by the false beauties of material creation. One who does not know alleges foolishly that Lord Krishna enjoyed women in his Rasa Leela in Vrindavan, or with his 16,000 married wives in Dwarka.
Okay, Hare Krishna. We have to talk about this one a little bit.
Yeah, Sama, go.
Hare Krishna. Well, first of all, austerity and tapa. That is what human life is meant for. Human life, whether it's male or female. Austerity and tapa. That means controlling the senses. And if we're in a woman's body, that means that the attraction for men is there and opposite. If you're in a man's body, then the attraction for woman is naturally there. And I guess the women's rights movement would have a heart attack reading this thing. But I think it's very important, having been in this movement for many, many years in a woman's body, understanding how sinful we all have been in this material world, abusing the energy of the Lord. We should take every opportunity available for our own humility. We have to actually practice being humble. You know, that's how we attract Krishna. So whether if we're born in one body or another body, take advantage. That was my mentality. Okay, I'm in a woman's body. That does not eliminate me from becoming a pure devotee, but it gives me another opportunity for transcendence. So we should understand Prabhupada is giving us the absolute truth. And rather than defending our material situation, we should be very anxious, if we're following this path, to take advantage of this opportunity to be humble, to understand our position as conditioned souls in this material world. Last life, I might have been in a man's body, and this life in a woman's body. The jewel is there. The human form of life is there, so that we can use this opportunity to become pure devotees and transcend all of the obstacles that we're being faced in this world. This is just another one. Does anybody?
I think another point that people misunderstand in Srila Prabhupada's books is when he talks about woman as the bewildering feature in material nature, it's also that man is the bewildering feature for women. Exactly. You brought that up, and I just wanted to emphasize it because a lot of people, especially in the modern day, they cherry pick particular statements and come to a conclusion. But if you read all of Srila Prabhupada's books, listen to all his lectures, look at the way he dealt with people around the world, you can see that he was not a sexist. He was not against women. Even in the beginning of the movement, many people would read some of these statements in the books and act improperly towards women, thinking that they were acting religiously or spiritually. But once maturity developed, then they come to more understand the proper definition. But nonetheless, this example of Nara and Narayan and their rigid tapasya and the importance of celibacy, the importance of not becoming attached to the bodies of the opposite sex, or in these days, even the same sex, this sex appetite, the sexual impulses, is to be controlled. That's the main point of Narayan. Rishi.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Bhadra, and this is a good topic.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing before I call on Bhadra and Tisha, that the Vedas are the absolute truth. And Lord Brahman, the previous verse that we read, felt like all the filth was leaving him because the Vedas are in his ears. So our job is not to try to adjust the Vedas to fit into this modern day. It is to read the Vedas. We're in the human form of life, and within our own hearts, follow them. Prabhupada wasn't interested, we discussed this before, he wasn't interested in the social dealings and who's the president and all these mundane things in the world. When we walk into the temple, when we walk into this Krishna consciousness, we are entering the spiritual world, and it's under different rules and regulations. So the Vedas are very important, though we might be offended because I'm a great woman and everyone this and that and the other thing. It behooves us as devotees to take advantage of this opportunity to become humble and to become self-realized and leave this material world. Bhadra and then Tisha for continuing this little discussion.
Well, another point is that the Krishna is the Purush and everyone else is a Prakriti. So it doesn't matter is a male or female, we all are Prakriti. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is on the absolute platform. It is a spotless Purana where there is no question of differentiating the man or women. It is all our spirit soul, and the Srimad Bhagavatam all is transcendental. So it is just, written. Srila Prabhupada is dealing here on the absolute platform, the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Right. He is definitely, but so that's the difference between the material world and the social dealings and the spiritual world. If people want to stay in the material world and try to do who's the best and this and that based on the bodily concept of life, that's not what we're doing. As followers of Srila Prabhupada, we are entering a different realm of transcendence that leaves all of that. It's called asat. There are two things: sat, eternal, and asat, temporary. There's all this stuff with all the different rights and the different trips. That's a sat. Sat is what we're hearing here. Go on, Tisha. Thank you.
I was going to say this. I was going to say that also that it applies both to men and women, and celibacy also applies to men and women, not just one-sided.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Tisha, unmute yourself, darling. Unmute.
Okay.
There you go. Good.
I guess I have an understanding that I'm in a woman's body. Some people are in a man's body, but all in all, we're spirit, soul. So we're neither man nor woman. But when you read some of these purports by Prabhupada, when he said, like the fair sex, the women, and then he'll go on to explain what a man should do, forsake the women and go. If you read further along, I guess, when you get to that part of your life when you retire from work and sannyasi and stuff, but there's never really a lot of explanation about what women should do. So it's kind of like you should leave the women and you go do this, and then over here we are in a woman's body. What are we supposed to be doing?
Okay, good. That's a good question. And that's why we have a spiritual master, and that's why we follow the Vedas. And there are things that women should do to protect themselves. First, they go to live with their children or live in the temple. Prabhupada arranged these temples. There were so many single women who joined with babies, because that was the thing. Men did leave women in the material world, and many women joined by themselves with their babies who were abandoned. So these temples are placed for shelter. There is, and if you have spiritual authorities or people that you trust, that you can consult with, that no one need feel that they are alone. This is the one of the wonderful things. Prabhupada created this movement so that we can have a society of devotees, and that there will be people to help other people as they go through different stages of their lives. So, and as I was going to say, a spiritual master, you accept a spiritual master who will help you, but not only your spiritual master, there are so many God uncles and aunts and people that we can consult to see that when we're going through difficulties in our evolution. So don't let's feel that we're alone. Here we are all together, and Prabhupada created that. It looks like we better go on now. So to who did I say to read next? Karna's not reading. Narayan, and then Faye.
Srimad Bhagavatam 277. Great stalwarts like Lord Shiva can, by their wrathful glances, overcome lust and vanquish him. Yet they cannot be free from overwhelming effects of their own wrath. Such wrath can never enter into the heart of him, the Lord, who is above all this. So, how can lust take shelter in his mind? Purport. When Lord Shiva was engaged in severely austere meditation, Cupid, the demigod of lust, threw his arrow of sex desire. Lord Shiva thus became angry at him, glanced at Cupid in great wrath, and at once the body of Cupid was annihilated. Although Lord Shiva was so powerful, he was unable to get free from the effects of such wrath. But in the behavior of Lord Vishnu, there is no incident of such wrath at any time. On the contrary, Bhrigu Muni tested the tolerance of the Lord by purposely kicking his chest. But instead of being angry at Bhrigu Muni, the Lord begged his pardon, saying that Bhrigu Muni's leg might have been badly hurt because of his chest is so hard. The Lord has the sign of the foot of Bhrigu Pada as the mask of tolerance. The Lord, therefore, is never affected by any kind of wrath. So how can there be any place for lust, which is less strong than wrath?
Does everybody understand that last statement? That bewildered me a little bit. But after contemplating, I thought of the example of fire and heat. So when there is wrath and lust, there is fire. It's compared to fire and heat. They go together. Wrath and lust are part of the same picture, just like heat is part of the same picture of fire. So I thought that was an interesting point. So Faye, can you read? And then we'll start again with Vaishnavi.
Srimad Bhagavatam 2.7.8. By being insulted by sharp words spoken by the co-wife of the king, even in his presence, Prince Dhruva, though only a boy, took to severe penances in the forest. And the Lord, being satisfied by his prayer, awarded him the Dhruva planet, which is worshipped by great sages both upward and downward. Purport. When he was only 5 years old, Prince Dhruva, a great devotee and the son of Maharaja Uttanapad, was sitting on the lap of his father. His stepmother did not like the king's patting her stepson, so she dragged him out, saying that he could not claim to sit on the lap of the king because he was not born out of her womb. The little boy felt insulted by this act of his stepmother, nor did his father make any protest, for he was too attached to his second wife. After this incident, Prince Dhruva went to his own mother and complained. His real mother also could not take any step against this insulting behavior, and so she wept. The boy inquired from his mother how he could sit on the royal throne of his father, and the poor queen replied that only the Lord could help him. The boy inquired where the Lord could be seen, and the queen replied that it is said that the Lord is sometimes seen by great sages in the dense forest. The child prince decided to go into the forest to perform severe penances in order to achieve his objective.
Please continue.
Prince Dhruva performed a stringent type of penance under the instruction of his spiritual master, Sri Narada Muni, who was specifically deputed for this purpose by the personality of Godhead. Prince Dhruva was initiated by Narada into chanting the hymn, composed of 18 letters, namely Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and Lord Vasudev incarnated himself as Krishnagarbha, the personality of Godhead with 4 hands, and awarded the prince a specific planet above the 7 stars. Prince Dhruva, after achieving success in his undertakings, saw the Lord face to face, and he was satisfied that all his needs were fulfilled. So the Lord incarnated himself as Krishnagarbha to satisfy a pure devotee of the Lord. And Prince Dhruva achieved this perfection simply by chanting the hymn mentioned above. And after being initiated by another pure devotee, Narada, a serious personality can thus achieve the highest perfection of meeting the Lord and attain his objective simply by being guided by a pure devotee who automatically approaches by dint of one's serious determination to meet the Lord by all means.
Thank you. This purport is another example of how a woman was put into great difficulty and how she had to take advantage of that difficulty by approaching the Supreme Lord and advising her son to do so. So that for me was a very wonderful contemplation, because I personally find myself in situations where my influence is very small. So what do I do with that? So these are all opportunities to depend on Krishna and to become humble. And Ekadasi is here. So Ekadasi, could you continue reading, and then Vaishnavi?
Srimad Bhagavatam 279. Maharaj Vena went astray from the path of righteousness, and the Brahmanas chastised him by the thunderbolt curse. By this, King Vena was burnt with his good deeds and opulence and was en route to hell. The Lord, by his causeless mercy, descended as his son by the name of Prithu, delivered the condemned King Vena from hell, and exploited the earth by drawing all kinds of crops as produce. Purport. According to the system of Varnashram Dharma, the pious and learned Brahmanas were the natural guardians of society. The Brahmanas, by their learned labor of love, would instruct the administrator, kings, how to rule the country in complete righteousness, and thus the process would go on as a perfect welfare state. The kings or the Kshatriya administrators would always consult the council of learned Brahmanas. They were never autocratic monarchs. The scriptures, like Manu Samhita and other authorized books of the great sages, were guiding principles for ruling the subjects, and there was no need for less intelligent persons to manufacture a code of law in the name of democracy. Long life, obedience, good reputation, righteousness, prospects of being promoted to higher planets, and blessings of great personalities are all vanquished simply by disobedience to a great soul. One should strictly try to follow in the footsteps of great souls. In the Vamana Purana, the history of Maharaj Vena and his degradation are fully described.
When Maharaj Prithu heard about the hellish condition of his father, Vena, who was suffering from leprosy in the family of a Malecha, he at once brought the former king to Kurukshetra for his purification and relieved him of all sufferings. Maharaj Prithu, the incarnation of God, descended by the prayer of the Brahmanas to rectify the disorders on earth. He produced all kinds of crops, but at the same time he performed the duty of a son who delivers his father from hellish conditions. The word putra means one who delivers from hell, called put. That is a worthy son.
Okay, thank you. Vaishnavi, could you continue reading?
Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.7.10. The Lord appeared as the son of Sudevi, the wife of King Nabhi, and was known as Rishabhadeva. He performed materialistic yoga to equibalance the mind. This stage is also accepted as the highest perfectional situation of liberation, wherein one is situated in one's self and is completely satisfied. Purport. Out of many types of mystic performances for self realization, the process of Jada Yoga is also one accepted by authorities. The Jada Yoga involves practicing becoming like a dumb stone and not being affected by material reactions. Just as a stone is indifferent to all kinds of attacks and re-attacks of external situations, similarly, one practices Jada Yoga by tolerating voluntary infliction of pain upon the material body. Rishabhadeva used to lie in his own stool and never move. But the stool of his body was fragrant like the smell of fragrant flowers, and a saintly person would recognize him as a Paramahamsa, one in the highest state of human perfection. One who is not able to make his stool fragrant should not, however, imitate Emperor Rishabhadeva. The practice of Jada Yoga was possible for Rishabhadeva and others on the same level of perfection, but such, a, such an uncommon practice is impossible for an ordinary man. In this age specifically, this Jada Yoga cannot be of any practical value. But on the other hand, the practice of Bhakti Yoga is feasible because it is just suitable for this age. The simple method of hearing from the right source, Srimad Bhagavatam, will lead one to the highest perfectional stage of yoga. Rishabhadeva was the son of King Nabhi and the grandson of Agnidhara, and he was the father of King Bharata, after whose name this planet Earth was also called as Bharatvarsha.
We should note that this teachings of Lord Rishabhdev, his pastimes and activities, will be further expanded upon in the 5th canto, and also the previous incarnation, Prithu, his activities and his incarnation will be further elaborated in Canto 4, and his receiving instructions from the 4 Kumaras, who are also other incarnations.
Thank you. Manvantara, could you read next? And after Manvantara, Pritam.
Sure. I just want to say thank you, though, for the earlier explanation on Bhagavat Puran and all the glories of Krishna. That explanation with the repetition was very, very helpful.
Oh, good.
Thank you. The Lord appeared as the Hayagriva incarnation in a sacrifice performed by me, Brahma. He is the personified sacrifices, and the hue of his body is golden. He is the personified Vedas as well, and the supersoul of all demigods. When he breathed, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns came out of his nostrils. The Vedic hymns are generally meant for sacrifices performed by fruitive workers who also want to satisfy the demigods to achieve their fruitive result. But the Lord is the personified sacrifices and the personified Vedic hymns. Therefore, one who is directly a devotee of the Lord is a person who has automatically both served the purposes of sacrifices and pleased the demigods. The devotees of the Lord may not perform any sacrifice or may not please the demigods as per Vedic injunctions, and still the devotees are on a higher level than the fruitive workers or the worshippers of different demigods.
Well, can you explain that a little bit, Manvantar? That is such an encouraging statement that relieves us from a lot of stuff that we wouldn't know how to do.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you think I know that, but it's been mentioned. It's been mentioned many times by other devotees as well in this forum about watering the tree, the root of the tree versus every leaf on the tree.
And that root of the tree is devotional service. Right. Thank you. Pritam? I think we need the screen up again, Hati.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Are like these incarnations that we're talking about right now, are they like partial incarnations, or I guess I always was under the impression that there's only 10 incarnations of Krishna, in his full incarnation. So I'm a little confused about these incarnations.
The incarnations of the Lord are infinite, really. We only know a few of them. I mean, because we're very teeny. But the example of the fire, the candle, the original candle lighting many, many, many candles. All the candles give the same light, but there is the original candle. This is all the same personality of Godhead. Krishna, he is the one, he is Bhagavan, that was explained in the beginning by my husband. Bhagavan, he is the supreme personality of Godhead, and he has many aspects. Many. Some people they have mothers and then they go to work, and there's two right there. Or you're dealing with your friends, or we're pujaris, or chanting around. We have so many different aspects to our personalities, and Krishna has infinite aspects to his personality, but they're all Krishna. That's kind of
that just that just clarifies, I guess, for me, a misconception that I had. So thank you for that.
Well, that it is a little bit confusing. Patty, maybe you can shed some more light on this, because a personality like Varaha, who is Krishna himself, an aspect of Krishna, and then we have Balaram, who is the first expansion of Krishna. I guess Krishna reveals more of himself in different ways. I mean,
Tisha, thank you for putting the question up. In next week's course materials, I'll put an image up which shows the hierarchy and the different types of incarnations as they're categorized. Lord Chaitanya's teachings to Sanatan Goswami elaborated on that particular aspect. As far as the 10 incarnations, I was going to bring that up next week. And it comes from a song by Jayadev Goswami, who was a 12th century poet. He wrote Das Avatar Stotra, which is a famous poem, highlighting those 10 main incarnations. But what Lord Brahma explained at the end of chapter 6 was that now I will explain to you the Leela avatars. So there are innumerable, just like Samapeya was just saying, unlimited incarnations of the Lord, and there are unlimited Leela avatars, but some, for one reason or another, are considered more sweet or more important, although they're really not, because it's absolute, but they're highlighted. And here we can see in this chapter, of course, there are a lot more than 10, but these are all in the category of Leela avatars. Whereas the previous Karna Dakshay Vishnu, where we ended chapter 6, he's called the Purusha avatar, because that's his main business, is to act as a Purusha, which emanates and creates. Whereas each one of these perform pastimes, which are called Leelas. So they're Leela avatars. Okay, we got a couple more. You're muted, Sama.
Who did I say to read next?
It's
Pritam,
me. Yes.
Pritam, and then Bhadra.
Okay, text 12. At the end of the millennium, the would-be Vaivashvata Manu of the same Satyavrata would see that the Lord in the fish incarnation is the shelter of all kinds of living entities, up to those in the earthly planets. Because of my fear of the vast water at the end of the millennium, the Vedas come out of my Brahma's mouth, and the Lord enjoys those vast waters and protects the Vedas. Purport. During one of Brahma, there are 14 Manus, and at the end of each Manu, there is devastation up to the earthly planets, and the vast water is fearful even to Brahma. So in the beginning of the would-be Vaivashvata Manu, such devastation would be seen by him. There would be many other incidents also, such as the killing of the famous Sankachura. This foretelling is by the past experience of Brahmaji, who knew that in that fearful, devastating scene, the Vedas would come out of his mouth, but the Lord, in his fish incarnation, not only would save all living entities, namely the demigods, animals, men, and great sages, but would also save the Vedas.
This also will be expanded upon in the 9th canto. And it's interesting to note that the pastimes of Noah and Noah's Ark are very similar to this story from the Vedas, that there's a partial devastation of the universe and all living entities take shelter of an ark or a big boat. And that's what we're seeing here in this painting, King Satyavata and the king and the Matsya incarnation. We'll read more about that in Canto 9.
Thank you.
And this is the last one for this week.
Okay, Bhadra.
Thank you. Text 30. The prize of Lord then assumed the turtle's incarnation in order to serve as the resting place for the Mandara mountain, which was acting as a churning guard. The demigods and demons
Is everybody having trouble hearing
Yeah,
Bhadra?
Bhadra, there's something wrong with your microphone.
Bhadra Prabhu, can you maybe turn your camera off and then read? Maybe your bandwidth is really low.
Oh, I let someone else say because my internet is not strong probably.
Okay,
Just
okay. Faye, you want to read? Hello?
Okay.
Okie doke, good.
Verse 13, the primeval Lord then assumed the tortoise incarnation in order to serve as a resting place or pivot for the Mandara mountain, which was acting as a churning rod. The demigods and demons were churning the ocean of milk with the Mandara mountain in order to extract nectar. The mountain moved back and forth, scratching the back of the Lord Tortoise, who, while partially sleeping, was experiencing an itching sensation. Although it is not in our experience, there is a milk ocean within this universe. Even the modern scientist accepts that there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of planets hovering over our heads, and each of them has different kinds of climatic conditions. Srimad Bhagavatam gives much information which may not tally with our present experiences, but as far as Indian sages are concerned, knowledge is received from the Vedic literatures, and the authorities accept without any hesitation that we should look through the pages of authentic books of knowledge, Shastra, Kaksravat, so we cannot deny the existence of the ocean of milk as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, unless and until we have experimentally seen all the planets hovering in space. Such an experiment is not possible. Naturally, we have to accept the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam as it is because so accepted by spiritual leaders like Sridhara Swami, Jiva Goswami,
Vishwanath Chakrabarti.
Thank you, Vishwanath Chakravarti and others. The Vedic process is to follow in the footsteps of great authorities, and that is the only process for knowing that which is beyond our imagination. The gigantic work of churning the milk ocean by the combined effort of the demigods and the demons required a gigantic resting ground or pivot for the gigantic Mandara hill. Thus, to help the attempt of the demigods, the primeval Lord assumed the incarnation of a gigantic tortoise swimming in the ocean of milk. At the same time, the mountain scratched his backbone as he was partially sleeping, and thus relieved his itching sensation.
Thank you. At this point, does anyone have any, because we finished the readings for this week, does anyone have any questions or something to add to this? Patti, do you have something more to say, or anyone have a question?
See if there's any questions first, sure.
Okay,
I have
Madhurya.
a question. Sometimes it's asked why so many of the avatars appeared on Indian soil.
Well, the thing is that at that time, when some of the incarnations, like the boar incarnation, appeared, it wasn't only Indian. It was the kings of India actually ruled the world at one point in its evolution. But there are also statements that say the demigods are standing on line to take birth in India because the Vedic knowledge is prevalent there. See, the Vedic, Prabhupada came to America to give us the Vedas, this Vedic knowledge, which is eternal, absolute knowledge. So, and Krishna comes and shows his mother and father, and we have to be qualified to receive, to be a part of Krishna's family. So what do you think, Patti?
In the beginning of, I believe it's Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, which is a book by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, glorifying Navadvip. It describes how within the universe, there are 14 planetary systems. And within that, there's the central planetary system. Within that, there's the planet Earth. Within that, there's the so many towns and villages and continents. Amongst them, there's one place called Navadvip, and this is where the Lord appeared. So he glorifies these places where the Lord did manifest his pastimes. And as we started the whole conversation today, the song by Narottam Das Thakur, Golokera Premadana, Harinama Sankirtana, that the Lord actually manifests his holy dhams in the material world on this planet, in Bharat Varsha. There are so many of them. This is the philosophy. So yes, most of the incarnations of the Lord do appear. Doesn't mean he can't or doesn't appear other places. We read in the 5th canto that he manifests all over the universe. But these particular Leelas, appropriate for us to hear at this time in our sojourn, are of earthly avatars who manifested here. I agree.
It's a pious. I mean, even the Rishwawala, Prabhupada would say, knows about the science of the soul and reincarnation. The people are pious. And that's why Indian people who are born in Indian families are naturally attracted to Krishna consciousness. And this is why Lord Chaitanya said that this should be spread to every town and village. He was talking to Indians. Prabhupada, he took it up. He said every person in Bharat Varsha should go out and preach this knowledge, because the rest of the world is absorbed in sense gratification. Now we see everything is going haywire. But this knowledge, where we have been blessed by Srila Prabhupada, all of us, to have this transcendental knowledge. And that's what we are all studying. We are studying the Vedas. And people who are born in India, I don't know nowadays, but if someone takes birth in a religious family in India, it's generations of people who are worshiping Krishna. In the ISKCON movement, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, we have now 2, 3, maybe 4 generations. And we see that the children who are being born, their reference is to see that there are devotees in their family. So it's a pious birth. It is.
Also, one thing we can see, especially in today's mass communication and transportation world, that this message can be spread everywhere, all over the world, which it has been. But as we read in the very beginning of the conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva, people are hankering and for something constantly. And that's why there's a constant clamor. The mode of passion and ignorance are so prominent. And these pastimes of the Lord are there. It's the purpose of creation that he comes and performs these leelas. And yet we see that so few people are actually interested. They're more interested in local politics, movies, sporting events, so many different things. Their friends and families dominate their consciousness drastically to the point where they don't even care to hear these pastimes. So part of the tapasya meant for devotees of the Lord is to force ourselves to hear these things. And gradually what happens is that a taste actually arises in the soul and starts to manifest and glorify and germinate, as we hear in that pastime of the philosophy of the Bhakti Lata Bij. And what happens is that as these pastimes become more and more relishable, then the activities of the material world become less and less interesting.
Thank you. Perfect.
I also have heard in different lectures Prabhupada said that about what Samapriya Prabhu was saying, that it refers to people in Bharatvarsha as well. So and that means Bharatvarsha used to be, like you said earlier, all over the world, encompass the whole world. So the responsibility is, yeah, for the Indians, but also for everybody, because we were inclusive in that.
Yeah, if we can understand our real nature as servants of Krishna, whoever knows that. And this is the Yuga Dharma. That's not only for Indians, it's for all of us. Once we know about this philosophy, you can go and speak to anyone about it. And pretty much as long as we have some energy, we should share this transcendental knowledge with others, even amongst each other. This is what we have mouths for and ears for. Otherwise, we're going to fill our senses with something else. Anyone else?
Well, that applies to what they say about being fortunate to be born in India, but actually it's Bharatvarsha, which was also all over the world. So
right.
That everybody's fortunate.
Well, everyone's fortunate because Lord Chaitanya came 500 years ago, and this is the prime benediction for humanity at large. That means all humanity. That means me too. How glorious. We got with all of us. Okay, so anyone else have something? Oh, Vaishnavi, would you like to say something? Thank you, Midoriya. Yes.
So speaking about incarnations and why it happens in India, I mean, Kali Kale Nama Rupe Krishna Avatar. So
very nice.
Kali.
Yeah, right. Good. So translate that in this day and age. The Lord
Kali, Krishna appears in his holy name. So
there you go. That's everywhere. Thank you. Okay.
Good.
Anyone else?
Nice note to end on.
Perfect.
Jai Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for coming out. See you next week.
Yes,
and online.
thank you. Jai Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Kripa Sindhi Vaishnavya